Hey, good morning. Um, I, I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit heavy. I wrote about it in my last article, and it has to do with the brain's anatomy and basically how that correlates to how we think. Um, there's an idea. Famous people have talked about the real way to innovation and success in whatever you're doing is to try to find the ground root of it, where it comes from. Elon Musk has done a lot with that philosophy as far as transforming the battery from a very expensive product to making it very cheap and incorporated into a car, and overcoming what we thought of batteries as little car toys that can go 5 miles an hour, but think of a battery powered car now that can exceed 200 miles per hour and have 0 to 60 in 2 minutes, 2 seconds or less. It's pretty amazing. He's done the same thing with SpaceX, and actually he tried to buy the existing missiles, rockets from Russia, and just he kind of got frustrated and just decided to go to the ground roots and research how rockets are made and what they come from and stuff. And that seems like a really kind of like oh, that's way out of my league or something, but like for many of us, I it's not as difficult as it sounds if we just put some simple practices into place, and one of the things that I try to talk about is like with mental health, and mental health kind of sometimes has a bad connotation to it, but we all have mental health issues, man. We all are trying to struggle to, find a serene life, the person we want to live with, and the work, the job that we do, the frustration that we sometimes have, and then the senses of feelings of joy and happiness that we want to have more of and stuff, So mental health is proverbial. It's something that we need to kind of like, it's a verb, a lot of us think of ourselves as this finite kind of static, I'm this and I'm that, but you know what, you're trying to get past that I am and more into the I am that I am is kind of a verb, it's this process of what we're becoming. And we're constantly becoming, even if we think we're staying static, we're constantly changing. Whether it's on a physical basis, how our perception of reality changes over time, how we age over time in a physical way. So, I talk about certain parts of our brain that cause us to think in a certain way, and sometimes becoming aware of why am I thinking this way? What is going on? We actually start to do self-analysis and kind of look at ourselves and say, you know what, man, I'm not thinking too good right now. Having some things, somebody's irritating me because they're irritating me. It's causing me to think this way or think that way, and so if we kind of look at some of the tapestry, like the weave, the knitting that kind of creates our thinking, and we could take that to quantum physics, which is, I've talked about that sometimes or whatever stuff, but I don't want to go. I just want to stay on the surface of the anatomy and physiology of our thinking, and how specifically our autonomic nervous system plays an integral part in our ability to have this expanded cognitive thought that we kind of have. We're not like, we're all kind of all about this, we have this, or whether we're dealing with that reptilian brain that targets something and it's going, I want this, or I don't like this, and I want to get away from this. So it has a very simplistic view of life, And so for us, finding the ability, sometimes when we have that kind of targeted approach and that reptilian brain kicks in and we're kind of feeling, man, I really want to kind of, I have negative thoughts. I want to do things that I'll probably regret and stuff like that. And and the fact that I don't want to think like this. I don't want to be like this. I want to try to expand my thinking. I want to see more than that. I want to see kind of like a circumference. I want to have like this pan approach to my thinking, that it takes in a lot of different factors so that I don't act in one way that I'm going to later regret. And I talk about how acting in like our guilt and shame, when our reptilian brain kicks in, when the autonomic nervous system initiates the sympathetic nervous system, and we come to this fight or flight survival mode, we act in a very, threatening, self-concerned. We don't have a really expanded view of life and our role in it. We're kind of just looking out for ourselves and stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's very practical at times. If we're in a threat situation, we need our sympathetic nervous system to kick in that adrenaline, to kick in the cortisol, to give the muscle fibers that tinge that they need. But some people, it's kind of like dieting. I tell people when you go on a diet, I say, it's not the sugar that you're craving. It's the sugar that causes the insulin release, the pancreas to release the insulin. And the insulin is this drug that gives us this very warm feeling. So you tell somebody, okay, their main thing is key lime pie. So you say, okay, listen, we need to stop eating key lime pie, right? They may not eat key lime pie, but they're going to find another sweet that they enjoy the same way because it's going to cause the pancreas to release that insulin. So figuring out how to address the insulin is a key way in trying to figure out how to diet correctly. So we're looking at our brain and figuring out what's engaging the sympathetic nervous system in my life today. If you spend your time watching the news, right? And so whether the news perpetuates your candidate that you believe in, or whether the news denigrates the candidate that you oppose, or so whichever side of the coin it's on, whether you're watching the good news that I support this guy, or the bad news that it talks bad, it does the same thing. It kicks in the sympathetic nervous system, and it causes a whole host of chemicals and pretty much toxins to enter our body and create this reptilian brain that has this fight or flight mode, And what's more about that is that we, even if we try to stop watching the news, just the same way we stop eating key lime pie, we'll find something else that's going to really initiate that fight or flight mechanism, because we get addicted to that feeling, that state of mind that has this sense of, and this control. And it doesn't have to be aggression. You don't have to be walking around constantly, like on kill mode, but you could have an attitude of, it's all about me, man. And if you threaten me, I'll act in a way that makes you look, I'll point out your flaws, or I'll do things that really make you feel uncomfortable if you threaten me in any way, right? And that's kind of a selfish way to go about life, right? So trying to figure out how that plays a role in our part. And man, the problem with this is when you engage in this type of self-analysis, when you get past that point of like, okay, and you're actually willing to try it, right? Because you're sick of you're sick of the mental hangovers you're having. You're sick of the feelings of, man, I acted in a way I shouldn't regret. I'm constantly doing this over. I keep hitting the same tree. I find the same person. So you finally get sick of all that stuff, and you're willing to take some self-examination and say, instead of saying, oh, it's this person because they did this to me, and this person because they did that to me, this person, all these people doing this stuff, and you're like, man, the common denominator to that whole scenario is me. So I need to figure out how to change me and not necessarily everybody else in the world, because whatever me there is going to wind up drawing that same sugar or that same scenario to release the fight or flight syndrome in me, And again, this is just a linear approach to this. I talk about this in one way, and how you think is how you think, so you think it in another way. And I think that's what's awesome. I think that's kind of why we can help each other by talking about things like this and hearing other people's perspectives, because it gives us a different way to think than the way that we do think, So a crux or a caveat to kind of a personal evolution from being that sympathetic fight or flight syndrome going through our life like that, and having more of a PNS, a parasympathetic nervous system response, where we kind of have this relaxed feeling, we kind of feel comfortable, kind of like it's that place when you're in church and you hear this sermon that just, man, it just hits home. It's just like this. Or you're watching a movie and you just feel, my God, it touches me so. Even if it's a sad movie, like the sad just makes you feel so part of, and you have this feeling of grief and loss and acceptance at the same time that you can't explain. Words feel so short. It's kind of like your brain's operating in a different level. So the fact that I'm having a bad day, or the fact that I'm having a good day, is not so much a fact of the circumstances of the day. It's it's more often than not the way that my mind is able to process what I'm experiencing, and that means what part of my, in this linear topic I'm talking about, how is my brain working? What parts of my brain am I using? And if I look at this, well, how could I? Well, the parts of my brain I'm using right now are not that good to help me accomplish what I might accomplish. So how can I maybe draw on some other parts of my brain's anatomy that can? How can I get out of that amygdala, that part of my limbic system that's totally stimulated and has all these arrogant feelings? How can I transform that? And there's lots of ways, and I talk about that. And I could try not to make this ad infinitum discussion, but like say like box breathing, or a way to breathe that accentuates one aspect of your out breath or another aspect of your in breath. Those play a part in the way that the diaphragm rises and falls. There's many ways that plays a part. One of the ways that plays a part is the space it creates and how it causes the heart to expand and the heart to contract, and how that effect causes the heart to release certain types of enzymes that affect the brain. And this correlation between the heart and the brain that is amazing. And like even in the heart, there's actually neurons in the heart that have the same construct of the neurons in the brain that create consciousness in our brain. So consciousness is an aspect of how our neurons are configured that allow the brain to actually think and ponder and perspective and have these different attributes. There's certain neurons in the heart that have those same qualities. They may not be able to tell us to turn right at a stop sign or to this, but they can give us a sense of, hey man, my heart's kind of telling me something. So an idea of like that idea of consciousness is, how do I prepare? I always say, man, make today a good day. How do you make today a good day? Do you drink a cappuccino? Do you have an energy shot? Maybe it's practicing some form of mind control. And mind control is not so much, I'm going to think this, I'm going to think. Mind control to me is not letting my mind specifically do what it wants to do. I'm going to tell my mind what I want it to do. So I want you in the morning, I tell myself I want to spend some time before I go to work and let my mind kind of come to a place where, and it's normally in the beginning, it's usually what you don't want to do. It's usually setting your alarm clock 10 minutes earlier than you do for waking up. It's usually spending some time just sitting there and being, Maybe it's doing a set of push-ups before you start each day. And the thing about it is, too, is like, with exercise, that's one of the things I do, too, is I almost always don't want to do it before I start doing it. And that's the thing. I say, I don't care that my mind doesn't want to do it. I'm controlling my mind, so I'm going to do it. And once I start taking those small steps in basic elements of mind control, I can wind up taking bigger steps when I'm having a bad day and things aren't going the right way, or somebody's not treating me right, and I feel like I want to let that sympathetic nervous system kick in. And like I said, this is just a linear way of thinking. When I say this, you might think this, you might see that, and that's awesome. That's great to do. I'm not right and you're wrong, or you're not right and I'm wrong. It's just a different way of seeing it, So, I think there's a big plus in reading about things and getting some scientific approach to it, and then hearing people talk about it. So what could you take away from this that I'm saying? What things could you do? Well, think about, who do I associate? What type of people do I let influence the way my mind thinks? Do I think better when I'm around this person, or do I think better when I'm around this person? Do I start looking at the little ways? And I know at first it kind of seems overwhelming when you take this. Man, some days you're like, it's just too much, man. I can't handle it. I'm just like, and sometimes we just need to, hey man, I just need to get a good night's sleep, wake up in the morning, start over again. The Serenity Prayer is a favorite of mine, and I often am stuck on what do I accept and what do I think that I can change. Am I giving up on something that I really can change and I just got to work harder on, or do I have to accept something that is kind of not something that I really like too much? And sometimes it's amazing when you kind of play that game with yourself, you start moving mountains that you thought you never could. So just trying to look at ourselves each day and just trying to be objective and say, take an inventory. Man, it's like checking your car, and before you go on a long trip, you want to make sure that there's fluid in the radiator. You want to make sure that you change your oil before you do that. You want to make sure the windshield wipers are fresh and going to handle the rain and stuff like that. Find it in a little way to establish a little checklist in the morning. Say, you know what, today I'm going to have a good day. And the reason I'm going to do that is I know I'm going to have challenges. I know things are going to be sometimes what I don't want them to be. But I know what's more important, what the biggest catalyst to me having a life of my dreams instead of my nightmares is my ability to adequately respond to life on life's terms. And as I have acceptance for life, as life is happening, and I use the parts of my brain in this linear approach of how can I address my brain today? How can I draw on me using my brain instead of my brain using me, or worse yet, somebody else using my brain? So am I going to let the news use my brain? Am I going to let this person who wants to constantly angry at life use my brain? Or am I going to look at this person who, man, they have a benevolent person. I really like, I'm going to spend some time. And even if you don't have come into contact with them, even if you just send a little note or do some little things to it helps expand that neocortex, that part of our brain that has all these functional attributes to its ability to show compassion, to want to be a better person, ability to strive. So a lot of this stuff sounds like, man, you got to be a Mensa or something, man. I ain't no Mensa. I just have a curious mind, man. I just investigate things, and I think if we all just, just have that kind of, maybe instead of just having complacency and acceptance, saying, oh, this is my life, say, you know what, man, just today, I'm going to try to make life, going to try to bring the best possible version of me into life. And when I bring that best possible version of me into life, man, it's amazing what life gives back to you. So anyway, hope you guys have a good day. And man, it just looks like this is just going to be just an awesome day today. I'm so glad the sun feels so nice. It's a little bit chilly.